Hello everybody, Dokkan Assets here. Today we are back with another Dokkan Battle animation analysis video, and before the final bit of hype died out for the boy Super Saiyan 4 Goku on Global, I wanted to do at least one more video in honor of the big man. If you have not checked out my last video, which was of course the full Super Saiyan 4 Goku OST Mega Mix, definitely go check out that video. I worked pretty hard on it, and I think you will enjoy it because I think it turned out really well. But with that being said, I think I have taken a look at every Super Saiyan 4 Goku in the game. I mean, I guess bear in mind like the free-to-play one or what have you, except for this guy. To my knowledge, and I went back and double-checked, I have not done a video on this guy. So if I have done an animation analysis video and I upload this and I get a comment saying it, I apologize in advance. But with that being said, we're going to take a look at this guy's animations today. I almost said his OST. Unfortunately, not for today's video. Obviously, we're going to take a look at his super attacks, counterattack, and active skill. Now, the important thing to keep in mind before we get into this video is, of course, this is a bit of an older unit. This guy came out during the 4th anniversary of Dokkan. Of course, he is from January 30th of 2019. So at this point, quite an old unit. I swear 2019. Yeah, 2019 was like last year, but it was quite a little bit ago, to be honest, at this point. So looking at our timeline, by the way, just for some major releases, right? Obviously this year, this was also the same year that for Worldwide Festival, the Gohan and Cell, right? Obviously Int, Cell, and AGL Gohan came out, right? So needless to say, it will be interesting to kind of see the quality of their animations based upon, you know, knowing what some other units came out during that same year, right? Obviously, Kid Goku came out that year, right? Same thing, of course, these gamers came out this year. Obviously, they were the part 2 of the celebration, right? During the time of May, obviously, we had Namek Goku. So obviously just kind of giving you an idea of some stuff that came out during this month to kind of remind you, hey, this is the quality of animations that we were kind of at the time. But do keep in mind, obviously, they were in the beginning of the year. So without further ado, let's go ahead and watch the animations one time through, and then of course we will go through and analyze. Also, got to give a huge shout out to the man Clash X. I literally could not find another upload of these. I swear even I've uploaded them, but I couldn't find my own upload. So I don't know, maybe I'm just tripping or something like that. But, of course, link to Clash's channel and this video in the description below. Thank you, good sir, for uploading this video so we could take a look at it for this animation analysis video. Now, with that being said, obviously, this Goku's animations have aged quite a bit, but I remember for the time that he came out, it was pretty cool, everything that he kind of brought to the table, and not to mention, he was, if memory serves, he was the first, or one of the first, units to also have a active skill, right? So obviously that was a pretty big moment for Dokkan Battle history because, of course, you know, active skills are now like a commonplace, and of course he was the first one. So with that being said, right, it's also interesting to see where some of his animations have come from as well, because they're kind of taken from a couple of different places. And sometimes Dokkan does that nowadays, where they'll reuse animations from different things, but not to the degree that this unit has, which is kind of interesting that this guy is an anniversary unit and he still does that. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we're rocking with today. So of course, starting off, we have the 12 key super attack, right? Which I love the start shot of this, by the way. It is absolutely fantastic. They did such a good job with it, right? Oops, I'm using my wrong button here. I love that he's kind of just stanced up in the beginning. It looks really good. And obviously they kind of have it fade into the asset of him more floating, right? With his feet kind of dangling a little bit. And I absolutely adore this right here. This animation of Goku obviously having the impact frame. I kind of forgot what this was called for a second. By the way, apologies for the low quality. The video is only in 480p, but at the time, the Dokkan Twitter account did not upload their videos in very high quality. So regardless, though, very cool impact frame. I really like that. And obviously you have him kind of get engulfed in white before the yellow surrounds him, right, with the impact frames kind of flashing, and then of course transferring to him stanced up. I think that's such a cool beginning to this. I really like the way that they do that. And I just noticed they kind of squish the asset a little bit to kind of give him a little bit more movement there. That's pretty cool. The aura looks really nice as well, if I say so myself. And I always really liked this shot here, right? I think this is pretty well done with the way that they kind of have him change the pose, right? The pose is close enough to this one that I feel like it doesn't feel jarring when he changes from this to this, even though obviously this is a much higher quality asset than this one, right? This looks more like a sprite than this one looks like an actual asset. But even though this is also just a PNG flying forward, right? The hair does not move, but again, this is a bit of an older unit. It is still cool because of the way that they animate him when he gets close to the camera, right? They kind of have this shake effect on the screen to really emphasize how much he's flying, right, super quickly, right? And not to mention, it's just cool kind of having it in your face like that. Alright, so then of course we move on to the part where Goku flies upright. Same thing, kind of having that intensity represented by the fact that he's kind of, you know, pulsing almost, right, as he's flying forward. And I really like the way that this looks with the blur effect, right, to then kind of get close to the enemy. And bam, appearing right before him, right after the blur, to then be punching in the gut, with a little bit of the yellow light effect as well, which looks really cool, right? Obviously a couple flashes in there, but pretty impactful punch if I do say so myself. And not to mention with the enemy sprite kind of moving back a little bit, it definitely feels that way. Then you have Goku move to the side, right, and just kind of smack the enemy away. I like that for this, right, instead of trying to animate the whole thing, they just have it have this flash of black, and then obviously he's already swiped, and you can see they have the smear effect too on the screen for then hitting the enemy away. Looks really good. Of course, teleporting then over here, we have a punch come from off screen, which I think also looks really good. This whole super is just very well choreographed. Of course, an iconic shot for Goku blasting away Omega from behind. That looks really good, and I like the yellow light that sort of envelops the area for this. It looks really, really cool. This has always been one of my favorite older super attacks, to be honest. And of course, we have the finishing shot with this beautiful asset of Goku with the key in his hand, which looks great. I love the shading as well on Goku himself, right? You can tell that there's actual light like down here, and it kind of gets a little bit more darker and shadowy as it goes up his body. It looks really good. Then, of course, they have the card art on the screen, and after the card art shows, right, we then have Goku launch out the blast, which looks cool. I like the kind of hurricane effect almost on it with a little bit of extra electricity. And this is a very nice transition. It's super simple, but obviously transitioning from the blast flying towards the screen to kind of have it just fade to white is almost kind of like it envelops the camera for a second, right? It's like the camera is basically blinded by the light of the attack before it's then, you know, on the other side, right, flying towards the enemy. I think that's pretty cool. And then, of course, a kind of older Dokkan explosion until this part, which is obviously looking really good with, of course, the energy kind of emanating off and, of course, billowing up. Everything looks really, really nice here, too. And they don't even have to incorporate the sprite with the way that that looks, so it definitely looks pretty good. Okay, so this part is obviously Omega's super attack, which then leads into Goku's counter. Now, the interesting thing about this counter attack specifically is it doesn't look bad for the time. It is basically one PNG that they kind of have this effect of Goku pulsing off of, and then basically him sort of like moving in a circle super quickly before having the asset just kind of appear from behind with one punch asset, and then having it fly towards the camera, right? But the interesting thing about this animation, oh right, and I forgot, then it transitions into him, you know, whipping his fist forward, right? And then it's basically just bam, the enemy is against the wall. The kind of interesting thing about this animation is it's fine, right? I don't think there's really anything wrong with it for the time. Obviously, the 12 key in terms of the actual animation, I would say, is much better. But this is literally just full power Goku's counter, which I always kind of remember was a little bit weird because I was like, oh, it's the same animation, but they literally removed the red outline from the full power assets that Goku had for his counter, and then, you know, basically just made him like base Super Saiyan 4, basically just non-full power Super Saiyan 4, and just reuse the animation for the counter attack. So I always thought that that was kind of interesting. I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing. Again, this was 2019, so it was still a little bit common for them to be doing things like this. It doesn't really surprise me that this ended up being the case, but it's not a bad animation for the time by any means. It's, again, very simplistic, and it almost kind of feels like an upgrade on, like, the OG Dokkan animations of, like, you know, your generic Kamehameha. It's kind of like if they took an animation like that and sort of gave it a fresh coat of paint. I think that is kind of how this makes me feel, basically, with this type of animation. So Moving on to the 18 key super then. What's interesting about this one, right, is again, this actually takes from another animation. There is a Super Saiyan 2 Goku and Majin Vegeta, because obviously Vegeta's animations mimic this, right? With the Super Saiyan 2 Goku, he actually has virtually the exact same animation for this little shot of Goku basically punching forward, right? Which is kind of interesting that they sort of take that from another unit. Again, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing because of the time period that this came out. I do remember seeing that and being a little bit like, huh, it is a little bit weird. But for the animation itself that's at play, I think it looks fine. The repeated animation of Goku punching and kicking Omega looks nice, right? With obviously kind of spinning around a little bit. And I really like the fact that this transition, right, obviously kind of goes behind the building, basically, right? Obviously, once they're covered up by it, then that's how they do the proper transition of having the light be there. And then, of course, it's like Omega breaks through the, you know, building's bricks, which is pretty cool. I do like that transition there. And as Omega flies away and smacks into the rock here, right, you then have, from the smoke, Goku comes up in a pillar of light, which I really like that they have this right here, where it's kind of almost like he's shrouded in darkness before he eventually comes into frame and you can see his color fully. I think that's really cool. And I always thought that this animation was pretty cool looking, even though it is literally just a PNG floating upwards. I always thought it looked pretty cool, especially for the time, right? I was pretty wowed by it when it first came out. And then, of course, we have Goku, you know, again, just the one PNG, right? With a kind of inside that yellow pillar of light, and very good lighting effect again. It seems like Dokkan's always nailed it on the lighting effects. I swear, and like, even when I look at these old Dokkan animations, they always have lighting effects on point like this. So that is really cool to see, right? Obviously, it kind of backs up a little bit, and the beams are moving around a little bit. You can actually see them kind of turning a little, which is nice, before obviously just changing to the PNG of Goku blasting it forward, with the Kamehameha looking pretty good too. And of course, then that ends up smashing into the enemy for the kind of generic Kamehameha collision animation. But then it does transition into this cool animation, the building blowing up, and I love all the pieces kind of flying everywhere, and the blue electricity almost coming off the Kamehameha. That's pretty cool. Alright, so obviously the active skill was definitely Goku's most original animation here, besides the 12 key, of course. But with this, right, it is a very simple animation, and at the time, the active skills were extremely simple because obviously they kind of wanted to linger on the character to kind of imply that they were talking. It depends on the active skill nowadays, right? If it's a one where they're actually doing an attack, it can be a lot more animated, but sometimes ones where it's like a boost instead of an attack, a character will just stand around and be talking a little bit. So it's kind of interesting to see how that sort of thing has evolved from this point, right? Because obviously we have Goku basically just standing here, right? Or floating in the sky, I guess, in this case. And then they do have the couple of assets, right, to kind of transition him into the Kamehameha pose. They just fade in between them, right? It is weird, I will say. He gets rid of the aura and then gets it back. That is a little bit strange, but I really like how the aura looks. The Kamehameha times 10 also looks fantastic, right? I like these little black lines coming off it as well. I really like the effect that they kind of have like Goku's shadows almost like pulsating or something. It's kind of hard to describe, but it looks really cool for sure. They definitely did a very good job with it. And then, of course, it zooms in on Goku, which is kind of interesting to note here, right? It looks like his arms are moving, but they do literally just tilt the asset, so it's a nice little bit of perspective as they zoom in. It is a little jarring, obviously, going from this to this, considering Goku's, like, now looking, you know, where you're looking is kind of a completely different angle, right? It's almost like if you teleported to the side of Goku's face, or maybe Goku teleported in front of you or just moved that quickly, that now you're seeing that side. But nonetheless, obviously, they zoom in on this asset of Goku, or, well, they zoomed in, I guess, because then, obviously, they zoom out right after. Of course, Goku charging up the Kamehameha, and of course the ball in his hands looking pretty good with the red. And then they zoom in once more before they transition into basically a shot from the back of him obviously launching it off, right? It is nice to see nowadays they have certainly improved upon animations like this. And this little explosion at the end looks really good. I love the way that this twists, right? Little effects coming off the bottom too. And the piece de resistance is this right here. When I saw this for the first time, I went, oh! Because it was so gas. And not to mention, obviously, this ends up being Goku's KO screen, which is super cool. This asset of Goku just looks really nice. And obviously, the effect of this kind of being red of like, this is where, you know, Goku fired the blast. And obviously, that light is kind of coming from off camera, as well as these really cool effects of kind of like the splattering energy coming towards Goku from his attack. Is really, really cool looking. I always love this little end bit of this active skill. It's super cool. So it is really interesting to see how they've improved upon active skills where characters are kind of just standing around nowadays. Because obviously, this is basically just like 5 or 6 PNGs total at play here, right? But it's of course because they want to talk, you know, they want to focus on the talking aspect of it back, you know, during this time. So it is very interesting to see how it was handled. But yeah, that is basically this guy's animations. It is obviously really clear to see by watching these that they have certainly aged quite a bit, right? There are definitely a lot better Super Saiyan 4 Goku animations than this. I mean, of course, the Int one that just came out on Global, right? Obviously, his animations are much better than Goku's. However, obviously, this guy's animations are still fun to look at, and it is very interesting to kind of go back and see how they've improved upon stuff like this, you know, now in the modern day. It is also kind of funny to see that he, you know, back then they reused animations from different super attacks and stuff like that, and to this day they still do that on occasion. So I suppose Akatsuki never changes in that regard, huh? But yeah, I definitely like these guys' animations, or this guy's animations, right? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Of course, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed. I don't know when I'll eventually do Vegeta. I kind of maybe should have done him during the 8th anniversary, because obviously it was that Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta and GT Goku. But maybe if we ever get some kind of another Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta unit in the future, because Dokkan apparently loves him for some reason, maybe then I'll do it, or I'll just do it as a one-off video for an animation analysis of everything that he has in his animation kit. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Join the Discord if you want to talk about some fun Dokkan shenanigans, link in the description. And the next couple of animation analysis videos, your boy is planning on going back in time to take a look at some of the Super Dragon Ball Heroes units that I've never actually done videos on for my animation analysis videos, so look forward to that. But other than that, I will catch you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Dokkan Assets out. Peace.